try to give you a brief history of the skyscrapers. As Bill Baker said, we are coming from the steel building in New York, an office building, and I will try to give you a brief history, showing you where the skyscrapers are being built right now, and give you some figures about the building types in terms of mixed use, hotels, how much of one type, how much of the other type. That is the cover of the proceedings of the first World Congress of the Council on Tall Buildings in 1972. At the time, the 100th tallest building was 172 meters. If we have a look at what will happen in a few years, by the time the World Trade Center will be completed, the last building on this 100 list will be over 300. Considering that only 12 years ago, we had only 12 projects of that height, and that in 4 years from now, there will be more than hundreds, it's a major change that we are now facing. This is where you can see that the skyscraper used to be a full office building made of steel and located in New York. And actually, pretty much old building, because we didn't build anything for 25 years after the 30s. An interesting case is the Moscow project. As the previous speaker mentioned, there was some aspiration to build, for several reasons, tall. Actually, they didn't build such tall building that was the Palace of the Soviet, but they did build this one. And they export their aspiration to Warsaw, and that is why we used to have in Europe some of the tallest building. If we have a look at the history of the world's tallest, actually most of the world's tallest of the past have been like the Petronas or even the World Trade Center, driven by government origin. And also in Europe, if you have a look at the Tour Montparnasse in Paris, the tallest building in Europe for several years, it was built by a developer, but it was a governmental project whose origin is from the 50s. So I think that Moscow project has sent a message to other governments to send those skyscrapers in the air. We did have some very tall projects by the government in Brussels, in London also, all originating from the 50s, but sometimes built a generation later. In the 60s, I guess, it was the decade of the corporate headquarters at its best. If you look at the Chase Manhattan Bank, it's a global marketing thing. There is the plaza that is associated to the project, then the name is associated to one, I forgot it, one Chase Manhattan Plaza. If you have a look at one IBM Plaza in Chicago, all those names come from that project. So I think that at that time, the project becomes more part of the city. In the 70s, well, it's the first time that we get a new series of very tall buildings. Buildings are still made of steel, but we have a first mixed-use project in that series. The 80s, nothing much happened regarding the very tallest, but we have one mixed structure, which is a departure from the whole steel structure and a local booming economy in Houston. The 90s, that is where Asia started. It's already among the world's tallest, 60%. Steel structure already is down to 40% when you look at the 10 tallest. And the spires that we can see on Bank of China, I think had a major impact on all the building that followed for the next 20 years. I think that it's slowing down a little bit. But if you look at the 10 tallest there, 60% has a spire. Today, most of those projects involve some vision, aspiration, as the previous speaker said, or some political symbols. And whether they are originating from a government like the Jinmao or Taipei 101, which is actually a private project, they are all involving a global city more than the Sears Tower or other projects in the past that were more corporate. And the steel structure is only 20%. Definitely with Burj Dubai, Chicago Spire Tower, I'm not sure it will be completed at the time, but it may be Russia Tower. All those projects are putting some community brand names, city marketings, far more than in the past. You will see that there are no more steel structure, and that the mixed-use project is now the leading project in terms of building such tall projects. If you have a look at the buildings over 150 meters, over 500 feet, let's say it is what can be considered today a tall building. I like to stress that those figures is a collaborative effort with Marshall Girometer and myself. We looked at the figures, the Americas, mainly North America in the 80s. All the buildings were located there. If you look at today, 2008, including the project under construction, the Americas account only for 27%. More interestingly, if you go to the building under construction, that may give you a vision of what is going on for the future, it is less than 20%. If you look at the same building over 150 meters, but considering the different building types, strange enough, like it was 85% located in the United States in 1980, it was 85% of office building. Close to 80% in 95. 95, by the way, is for me a milestone year because that was the year the Burj Al Arab was officially announced. At the time, it was the Chicago beach, and probably very few could imagine what would happen after that. And that means that today, including the project under construction, the office building is only less than 50%. And if we look at the projects under construction, it's only a quarter. And I think that it will be not only a major change for people living in those residential projects that you can see are accounting now for almost 50% of the project under construction, but in many parts of the world where the office building actually, not the office building as a lapsus, the tall building is not very popular, like Europe, that will be a major change because I think that in the past there was a confusion between people being against the tall building and people being against the office building. And so there will be far less reasons to be against a tall building that is meant for people living, as it has been the case for 20 years in Europe. If we single out some building types, actually one was not in my list. Because so far a 6 to 8 story retail project was supposed to be a tall shopping mall. I just want to put some example, and here we can see that last June they opened a 19-story shopping mall megabox in Hong Kong. So I don't know, perhaps tomorrow it will be 49-story. So I think that the tall buildings will be linked to other building types than what we have seen in the past. If I put a series of mixed-use buildings, like the Beetham Tower in Manchester, you have a hotel at the bottom, you have residences at the top. This is the tallest in that city, and actually every city in Great Britain at the moment is building a very tall mixed-use building, and I want to show this in relation to the past, where usually the tallest building was an office building. And so there is some pride, apparently, for cities putting a mixed-use project in the center. I believe that the mixed use is linked also to the fact that people don't want to build a single-use office quarter, districts, but mixed-use districts. It's also, I believe, linked to the fact that you have less and less major tenants to occupy this building. In the past, you had an IBM building in Chicago, in New York, in Brussels, in Frankfurt. Today, you don't find so easily a major tenant. So I think that the major tenant of tomorrow is the hotel that you find in all those skyscrapers, and also like in this Grand Hyatt, you have the residents of the Grand Hyatt. I don't know if you've seen the other entrance. So the hotel is the major tenant, and also it helps to sell the apartment because people like to be part of some branding. I'm showing this residential project in Hong Kong just to show that, as opposed to what is usually being said, not all high-rise are the same everywhere in the world. And I'm not talking here about cultural or stylistic aspects, but if you look at the very articulated shape, actually it comes from the Hong Kong building planning regulation that is very strict when it comes to natural daylight and natural ventilation. And the top of the plan, you can see that all the rooms, all the bathroom, kitchen has a direct access to natural daylight and ventilation. The bottom of the plan, it's no longer 100% true. Some of these rooms have no access because there is some relaxation with that rule. But mainly the market actually although there are some relaxations since '97, the market still usually complies with that rule, having daylight, direct access to daylight and ventilation, and that gives a very atypical for us aspect to those residential towers, although over there, and because the world being what it is actually one of the building type that is the most built, because there are so many projects like this in Hong Kong. When it comes to hotel, I just want to say that history is repeating itself in some ways. Obviously, Dubai, this is Sheikh Mohammed in Time magazine as being one of the most influential people in the world. Obviously, Dubai set the standards by building very tall, very high-quality hotels, Emirates Towers, Burj Al Arab. And I just want to show that in the history, on the left you have Arnie Jacobson with the SAS Royal Hotel, then you have Hong Kong, then you have Brussels. In the past, outside the United States, hotel has very often been a catalyst for contemporary architecture, very tall building, and a major change in the cities. Even in Hong Kong, when they had some tall buildings in the past, the Hilton, when it opens in the early 60s, was the tallest. Considering that density, as the previous speaker mentioned, is probably one of the best reason to build tall, I've thought of interest to show you this office building in Chicago, completed in '97, the picture at the top, and currently under construction for the phase 2. Because the client didn't need more space at the time. It was recession time, no need to build speculative office building. And I just find it interesting that we can face the density of cities when we see this project that is currently under construction when it comes to phase 2. And so the FAR used to be 10.5, it goes to 18 when it will be completed. I think that we also have to bear in mind that the world is changing and that we have to plan ahead. For instance, many projects have changed when it comes to their use in some matured market like Chicago or New York. On the left you see the Trump International. It used to be a bad office building, badly located, transformed into hotel and residence. On the other side, and I guess it's good for everyone to bring life. On the other side, a series of hotels in the same neighborhood, like the Plaza, has been transformed into residence. And I think that the life that was brought in by those hotels is disappearing that area, and that could be something that is not so good for the city. Actually, they've reduced to 150 room the hotel from 900, and then they had to increase the number of rooms because people were complaining about what I'm saying about the life disappearing. But I took the Plaza because it's a well-known project, but a series of hotels are disappearing, and so we have to plan ahead and imagine that in Dubai in 40 years, we don't know what will be the use of all those buildings. To put some figures, maybe some fun facts, don't always believe what you see. Trump says it's a 68-story building. It's not, it's 58, but he's telling height. He says it's 90, it's only 72, but because of the floor height, it has the height of 19 level. That's what he's saying. Also, everyone wants to build 88-story because it's a lucky number in China. Actually, some only have 85 stories, but we push it a little bit so we have the magic figure. Some actually have a few penthouse level, but they don't mention it because it has to be 88. And if you're wondering why Taipei 101 has 101 stories, that's because 100 would have been perfect, said Haraslin, but we want to be more than perfect. And if you go to meet Lake Kashing on the 70th floor, actually there are not 70th floor, only 62, because there are no level ending with number 4, because those are unlucky number like the 13. The same for the number of towers. You could go to tower number 6, but it's only the 5th one because there is no tower number 4. And I'm concluding very soon now. After those figures that you don't always have to believe when you read the papers, I'm trying to put some figures again that I've put together with Marshall Jorometa, trying to figure out how many projects have been built over the years. If I take out the early years where we didn't have enough projects, I can see that for 5 decades, we are doubling the number of tall buildings every decade. And even if today we believe that we are building a lot, it's more, but it's not 2-3 times more. You can see the percentage on the right side. And so about the future, considering that we, at the end of this decade, we will have 3,000 building over 150 meters. I don't know what could be the future, but if we take a conservative hypothetical increase of just 100%, that means that we may have, at the end of 2020, 6,000 such projects. That means that during the decade from 2010 to 2020, there could be 3,000 such projects being built. That is just an hypothesis, and perhaps we will meet again in about 12 years and see if it makes sense or not. And so I don't know exactly what image you would choose as the future. This is a project on the right that should be 250 stories. And considering the figures I've put, this is perhaps our future. Thank you very much.